Good evening. So, if you read my bio, and I know all of you read my bio, you'll realize I travel a lot. And one of my favorite things about traveling is that you get in these sort of culturally awkward moments where our culture, American culture, sort of connects with other people's cultures. But it doesn't have to be American to other cultures. It can also be Icelandic to other cultures. And one of my favorite stories is one of my great aunts and uncles. They were in Central Asia for a wedding. And there was this, it was a long wedding. It was like 3 or 4 day celebration. There was a farmer that took an interest in my aunt. And she came up to, or he came up to my uncle, and he said, well, through a translator, I would like to buy your wife. Now the translator was quick to say, you know, you've got to take this seriously, you can't just blow this off, you have to sort of negotiate with him for a little while. And my uncle said, well, okay. And he had sort of an eye for mischief. And he realized you seldom get an opportunity to negotiate to sell your wife. And so you should spend a little time with this and really enjoy it. So he spent a couple of days actually negotiating with the farmer, again being culturally sensitive, and you know they would be sitting huddled with the translator, and they would go look at Duna, who is a really striking woman, and still is actually. Look at her and point and talk, and she was all curious. So what's going on? You know, and he's like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And we'll talk about it later." So this goes on for a couple of days, and finally it's like, I think I've kind of dragged this on long enough. And so he tells the poor farmer, who had literally offered everything he owned to buy my aunt, and. He's like, you know, the real problem here is that I can't get the livestock on the plane. It's just not going to work. I mean, it's a generous offer. You know, I'd love to do it, but it's just not going to happen. And, you know, he understood that. But Duna, when they got on the plane to go home to Iceland, said, so Kati, please tell me, what was going on? What were you up to? And he said, well, I was negotiating to sell you. which upset her, as it probably would upset most women. But that's not really what upset her. She didn't like the price. She thought he could have done better. Now, these culturally awkward moments, they can happen, you know, if you decide to do something special. So one day, I was in Istanbul, and a friend of mine, an English friend, said, you have to try the Turkish hammam in the hotel. It's a fantastic experience. And I'm like, look, I do not want to bathe with a bunch of large, naked Turkish men. And he's like, no, it's totally different. There's this very strong Kazaki woman, and she will wash you and clean you, and it's fun. And I'm like, I'll try. And I get in there, and it's a lovely room. It's like something out of the Ottoman Empire. It's solid marble, and there's this wonderful marble slab, and she doesn't speak any English. She directs me to lay down, and I lay down, and she proceeds to scrub me with a loofah, which I think was about 80 grit sandpaper. And, you know, as these layers of skin are falling off, and I'm wondering if I'm actually bleeding in some places, I'm face down. And I kind of tilt my head like this, and I look up. And so this is going to seem like a side story, but it's not. You'll understand in a minute. I have a niece who says that she has to wear a skirt of a certain length because at school, otherwise people will see your situation. And this woman who's like scraping skin off my back, I open my eyes like this, and 3 inches in front of my face is her entire situation. The sarong or whatever she's wearing has completely opened up. Now, a lot of you will think that waxing originated in Brazil. That's not true. A little history lesson. It started actually earlier than that. And in the Eastern Roman Empire, it was a big thing. Apparently in Istanbul it still is. So her situation's about 3 inches in front of my face. She's taking off layers of skin, and then she kind of moves, which I was grateful for. And then she starts cleaning me in places I'm pretty sure my wife hasn't touched. And I do not remember this in the Wikipedia entry. And it just lasted long enough that I couldn't object. I didn't have time to object, and then she went on to something else, and I'm like, okay, this is fine. So then she turns me over, proceeds to scrape layers of skin off of me. And I'm thinking, okay, I can relax now. And then she starts to rub my situation with the loofah. Now, the problem with male equipment is that it even responds to negative influence. Even 80 grit sandpaper causes things to change. And so I'm mortally embarrassed. I'm like, this is not the relaxing after trade show event that I expected this Turkish bath to be. So at this point, she has me stand up on this marble slab, and my situation is still in evidence. And that's when the manager of the place walks in. And she was pretty hot. And dressed exactly like I like ladies dressed as. And I kind of give her an up and down. She gives me an up and down. Oh! And I'm standing there, and that actually didn't help because she's pretty enough that everything still remained at full mast. And she says hi to me. She talks in Turkish to the lady who was giving me the bath, so to speak. And then she looks me up and down again. And she says, well, I hope you have a nice time. And I'm like, lady, my eyes are up here. So I go back to my room, cleaner than I've ever been in my life. And then I go down to the bar, and I meet my friend Roderick, who recommended this whole thing to me. And so I was already a martini and a half into the evening trying to, I was clean, but I also felt a little dirty. And trying to cleanse my soul a little bit with the gin. And I said, Rod, that was a little weird. And he's like, what do you mean? And I started to tell him the story, and he's like, well, that didn't happen to me. And still to this day, I don't know if he set me up. Thank you. Vote for me.